today's reading from Living Wisely, Living Well, which is a book by Swami Kriyanandaji, where he has just a piece of advice for every day of the year. And today's February 28th, and the topic this evening is overcoming nervousness. And the reading today, to overcome nervousness while teaching or lecturing, concentrate on giving out to people rather than on making a good impression. And I'm also going to read February 29 because it only comes along every 4 years. And if we do these readings one a week, then it may be 25 years before we hit this one. So I'm going to read it because it's also related to this topic. To overcome fear of misjudgment by others, think of and speak to them kindly. Your fears will then move from self-concern to an expansive interest in their well-being. So this first part, I'm going to talk more specifically about overcoming nervousness while teaching or lecturing, because that's what the reading is. And some of these principles apply to other areas that we're trying to overcome nervousness in. But most everyone in some time has to speak or lecture or just share with a larger group at your work, giving a presentation, or to your family. And so, but in other ways too, situations that make us nervous. You know, talking to your boss or to someone who's intimidating. So, overcoming nervousness. One, and this big piece of advice that Swami Kriyananda gives, is to think in terms of giving out to people rather than making a good impression or worrying about what they are going to think, because that's what he's saying here. So if we think in terms of giving to others, then what happens is we dissolve this contractive sense of self, which causes nervousness and fear. And so if we think, especially in giving to others, then nervousness will go away. Now, sometimes there's still a sense of nervousness when you're speaking for the first time before a large group. In fact, the very first time I ever had to speak before a large group, I was so nervous that my knees were shaking so violently that I thought I was going to fall over. That's how nervous I was. But I've learned that I can get over it. If I could get over that and start speaking before large audiences frequently, then you can too. So it can be overcome, and partly it's just a little bit of experience, shows you that there's nothing to be afraid of. And then more and more, as you think of giving to others, you find that you think less and less of yourself in a way. Now, Swami Kriyanandaji, watching him over the years, he's been the greatest teacher for Ananda acharyas and teachers on how to speak and how to lecture. And his style was very, very unusual. It's really unique, and from what I've seen. I've spoken at places where there was other spiritual groups there and teachers. And even one or two people have noted over the years that Ananda speakers are unique. And it's because we learned from Swami Kriyanandaji. And his style and his approach was severalfold. One was to speak from inspiration. When you share inspiration, you convey feeling and consciousness, and it uplifts and changes people. Another one is to speak more from tuning into the audience and not just from written lecture notes. Now, Swami himself, in the beginning of his lecturing, he was a little bit nervous. And he said that one of the tools that he used to overcome that was the practice of something that Paramhansa Yogananda taught, which is to see this life as a dream or a movie. It's just a dream of God's. And when we see it as a dream of God's, there's a sense of joy and freedom and relaxation. Swamiji pointed out that when he started this practice in the beginning, the problem was that he didn't take it seriously. And so he didn't put as much energy into the talk as it really deserved. And so he took it to the next step, which is that a very interesting one, which is that he would see God and he would even see his own guru in the people that he was speaking to. And especially this last part, he would see that the people he was speaking to was his own guru. And how do you understand that? Because it seems presumptuous to teach and lecture your own guru. But he felt that when he was lecturing and speaking, and his guru was present in everyone, in everything, including in himself, flowing through him, he would put out the right kind of energy to do it in an inspired way, to do it in the best way that he could, if he saw it as a gift to God, to his guru, whenever he spoke. So that was one trick that I've also found helpful. Another thing is just to prepare, in the beginning especially. People see Ananda Acharyas speaking spontaneously and without a lot of notes, and they think to jump up right away and do that. But for my own self, I used notes for many, many, many years when I spoke. Maybe even 20 years or more, I used notes and referred to them when I spoke, until I realized I didn't need them anymore. For a while, what I would do is I would bring the notes up and have them there, just because I was still a little bit insecure. But over time, I realized that I was not even referring to them anymore. And so that sort of crutch eventually went away. And so it comes with practice, experience, learning how to do it in your own way, in your own style. Now, the other thing that Swami Kriyananda taught us was to especially prepare by preparing your consciousness. Yes, prepare your thoughts, have an understanding of the topic, but most important is to prepare your own state of being before you get up and start speaking. Because you'll find, as I have found over the years, that I can be almost over-prepared with my ideas and thoughts. But if I get up there and I'm not inspired, I haven't meditated, it comes across very, very dry and very, very uninspired. And so this is very important, is to try to uplift your consciousness, meditate before you speak, try to feel God, the Guru, especially try to feel divine joy. Swami Kriyananda confirmed something that I've experienced over the years. He said that Ananda teachers, when they share and they give a class or a talk, he said they're conveying bliss. They're not just conveying a subject. And it doesn't mean you go into samadhi and bliss and everyone else goes into bliss. You're sharing joy, you're sharing inspiration. And I have found that if I'm in a joyful mood or vibration, when I get up and start speaking, there is joy, there's inspiration, I'm a lot more relaxed. The people in the audience are a lot more relaxed. This is another key. Whether you're working with a group of people, not even lecturing, but trying to work on a project together, but lecturing also, or giving a class. And this is a real key, something that Yogananda said, which is to get people to laugh towards the beginning of your talk. What this does is twofold, is that in the beginning, especially if there are people who haven't seen you and don't know you, they're kind of checking you out and wondering who is this person. They're maybe overly serious. Maybe they're not sure that they want to accept truth from you because they don't know you. Can they trust you? And there's a little bit of tension there because of that. But if you can get people to laugh, laughter just opens people's hearts. It relaxes their defenses from being closed off or unreceptive to what you have to say. So try to find a way to get people to laugh. In the beginning of my working with doing a lot of classes, I would always try to tell a joke towards the beginning. But I found that this way didn't always work, because sometimes when a joke falls really flat and nobody laughs, it's really bad. It sort of sets the tone for the rest of the talk in a really bad way. So you have to be careful with that. What I discovered over the years from watching two Ananda Acharyas, some of you might know them. One of them is Nayaswami Haridas, who teaches at our Bangalore center. And another one is Nayaswami Ananta, who teaches at Ananda Village. And what I watched from watching those two over the years is that they just got people to laugh during their talks a lot. And people were very open. But they would never tell a joke. And I was watching them, and I saw that it was just the way that they spoke, the way they told a story on themselves. It was just very funny and got people to laugh. And as I tuned into that approach, I finally went deeper and realized that, going back to what I said a few minutes ago, that they had a lot of joy when they spoke. And that joy was just infectious. It came across in the way that they spoke, just in looking at them, that sort of thing. So just having that consciousness of joy, humor and laughter, but a deeper sense of joy, which can come across as humor and laughter, really opens people up, relaxes them, makes them much more receptive. And you'll find that when the audience is very relaxed, then you get very relaxed also, and you lose your sense of nervousness. So these are ways that we can do this. Enthusiasm is another one. Yogananda, when he would come and give a lecture before a large audience, he would come running out onto the stage with his hair flying behind him with so much energy and enthusiasm. Because sometimes, depending on the audience, if it's a new audience, in the beginning, sometimes you really have to shake them up and get their energy going. And sometimes if it's in a stuffy room and it's very crowded, people are a little bit maybe sleepy, sometimes you have to do more to wake them up. The other thing is just sometimes in the middle of a talk, just to have people stand up, do some deep breathing, just to change the energy, but also to change your own energy, I have found. Now, there's one more thing that I have found helpful, and it's, you could see it as a crutch, but it's also good for the audience, is that every once in a while it's helpful to read a quote from, if you're an Ananda teacher, a quote from Yogananda or Swami Kriyananda. This does two things. One is that it just changes the rhythm, because sometimes you start talking and you just get into the same rhythm and every word is the same rhythm, and it kind of lulls people to sleep a little bit. And so it just breaks that rhythm and pattern, and it also just breaks your own kind of getting caught up in being too outward, and it helps you to just pause, read something, and look out at the audience and just tune into the consciousness of the Guru. So these are all ways to overcome nervousness when speaking particularly. Now, overcoming nervousness in general. Yogananda said that and I'll talk later about the environment that we choose, but he said that nervousness basically is in the heart, and it's the feelings of the heart. He said that fear is focused nervousness. So fear and nervousness are related, and I'll get into this. But nervousness is just some unsettled feeling in the heart. And so when the heart is unsettled, maybe the heartbeat is really fast for some reason, you just feel a little bit on edge, a little uneasy, and it can come across as nervousness. So Yogananda clearly stated, and you can see this, that the opposite of nervousness is calmness. And so rather than thinking of just overcoming nervousness, because when we think of overcoming a negative quality, we sort of are concentrating on the negative quality. I'm going to overcome nervousness, and it just, our mind tunes in more to the negative quality. So tune in to the antidote. And the antidote for nervousness is calmness. So think in terms of, I'm going to develop calmness. The best way to develop calmness for the yogi, for the follower of Paramahansa Yogananda, is the Hong Sa mantra in watching the breath and doing the Hong Sa practice. Hong Sa, the literal translation is it's a Bij mantra from Aham Saha, which is I am Brahman, I am He. And what does that mean? I am infinite spirit. And the reason why that vibration, the mantra conveys that vibration of I am infinite spirit, so we don't have to be thinking that's what I am. The mantra itself helps us to experience that. But when we are nervous, we are thinking of ourselves again. When we are thinking of the infinite, identifying ourselves in expansion into the infinite, then all cause of nervousness just dissolves away, because our consciousness becomes so big that there's nothing to be nervous about. It's more when our consciousness is very small and contracted that we start to have fear and nervousness, because we're thinking of the little self and identifying with the little self. So practice of Hong Sa, watching the breath, calming the breath, doing some deep breathing is very good for developing calmness, especially before speaking, doing some Kriya yoga practice, or just some deep, equal part breathing, the triangular breathing, inhale deeply, hold, exhale. I saw Swami Kriyanandaji even one time before a lecture. I don't know what was going on, because I only saw him ever do this once. But just as he was sitting there before a large audience, he did some of the alternate nostril breathing. I think it was just some energy needed some balancing. And so he used the tools of yogic breathing to calm himself before speaking. But it's the same any situation that we're going into where we are nervous, do work with the breath, because you will find that the breath gets very unsettled when we are fearful or emotional or nervous. And so by changing the breath, we change the heartbeat, we change the heart rate, we change the feelings of the heart. This is why Hong Sao is so effective in other ways, is it works with calming the breath, calming the waves of feeling of the heart, which calms our consciousness, which dissolves nervousness. And so these are all practices that help, whether you're speaking, giving a class, or doing anything that you're about to get into that you're nervous about. For example, if you're going to go ask your boss for a raise, do some things before you go in there. Don't just run in there and ask. Do some meditation, do some deep breathing, do some affirmations to change your consciousness and especially increase your magnetism, so that when you walk in there, the boss sees that, oh, this is someone who has energy and magnetism. I hadn't noticed that before. Yeah, maybe they do deserve a raise. And so our own magnetism especially helps to change the circumstances around us that might cause us fear or nervousness. Now, nervousness, as Yogananda said, is focused fear. And fear and nervousness, one of the great reasons for overcoming them is that they tend to attract that which we fear. And so when you're constantly affirming a negative by being nervousness about it and thinking about it, it tends to create a negative magnetism that attracts the very thing that we fear. There's a story that Swami Sri Yukteswarji, Yogananda's guru, used to tell. And it's a story of an advanced yogi who had great advanced consciousness. He wasn't a master, but he had a lot of magnetism. And one day he was meditating, and I think he was walking in the jungle, in the forest, and he came across a wishing tree. And a wishing tree is a tree, legendary, but maybe it's true, that whatever you wish for while sitting under the tree comes to fruition and manifests. And so this advanced yogi, who wasn't super advanced because he had some desires and attachments, as you'll see, he wished just to have some fun. He wished for a palace. And suddenly this beautiful palace appeared all around him, over him. And then he wished for all kinds of treasures and jewels and all kinds of valuable objects and paintings, and they all suddenly manifested. Then he wished for people and friends and laughter and joy to manifest in this palace, to be able to share it with others. And that also manifested. And then as Sri Yukteswarji tells the story, he was walking through and enjoying this beautiful palace, and he walked down these stairs, and he came to a completely empty room that he hadn't noticed before. And as he was standing in this room, he looked out the window. There was no bars or no window there. It was just a big open square in the wall. And he looked out, and there was the very jungle that he had been in just before he started wishing, because this wishing tree was in the jungle. And then he heard a tiger howling in the background. And he started getting a little nervous about it because he was afraid of tigers. And then he thought, oh my God, what if this tiger jumps through this window and kills me? Because he just started getting more and more fearful. Well, the problem with that thought was that he was standing under a wishing tree. And as soon as he had this thought about a tiger coming in, jumping in the window and killing him, the tiger jumped through the window and killed him. His wish was fulfilled. His fear was fulfilled. And so the way that Sri Yukteswarji explained the moral of the story, this is how he put it. The moral of this story is that if, by the practice of concentration, one has developed a strong mind, he will be sitting under the wishing tree of his own spinal energy. He should offer all his desires, his understanding, and his will up to God alone for fulfillment. And this does happen where people who develop some magnetism, some concentration, some yogic powers, I guess you could call it, through meditation, through different practices and techniques, but without perfecting their heart and their desires, it can be a little bit, I wouldn't say dangerous because that sounds fearful, But you just have to be careful of what you wish for. And so as you learn to meditate, as you develop your magnetism and your strength and your willpower and the ability to manifest more in your life, also you have to be really sure that you're also purifying your heart and your desires and calming the heart so that what you wish for is God's will alone. And then more and more, as you meditate and pray, you'll have less to fear about, you'll have fewer desires, and your wishes will be in tune with what is the will of God and what is right and good. And so this is important, to work on purifying the heart. And you will also find that as you purify the heart, all fear goes away, because a pure heart is in God, feels God's presence, feels that you are always in God. Yogananda, Swami Kriyananda, he said that when we pray and meditate, he said, don't pray to God and don't meditate to God. He said, pray in God, meditate in God. And when you practice this often enough, you will find that even as you go throughout the day, that you feel like you are in God and that you are part of God and all around you is God and there's nothing else but God. And when you feel that way, then all fear goes away and there's trust and positive magnetism, positive energy. You'll find that you even start to see the good qualities of God in others and that those qualities actually start to be drawn out. And this is what a saint or a master does through their own magnetism and consciousness. And this is why people feel uplifted in the presence of a great saint or master, because they see God in us and draw that out of us and draw the good out of everything in creation and all around us. And when we do that, there is little or nothing to be nervous about or to be fearful about. Now, some things in our environment that we can change to help overcome nervousness. Music that we listen to can either make us nervous or make us calm. Be very careful. Music especially works on the level of feeling because it works with vibration and emotion and feeling. And so really jazzed up, music that has a heavy beat or a very fast beat can increase the nervousness of the heartbeat. Or very calming music can actually calm down the heartbeat. So be careful of what you listen to. Same with movies that you watch. If you really like horror movies and violent movies, naturally that's going to increase the nervous feelings of the heart. Same with actions that we perform. The environment in our own house, the paintings that we have on the walls, the colors. Even they have found, these are psychological studies, that a lot of clutter in the house, just a lot of junk lying around and disorganization, causes a sense of unease and nervousness because of just this energy that's a little bit unsettled. And so the objects in a house even and can create either nervousness or calmness. So environment is very important. The people around us is especially important. This is what Yogananda said. Be careful in the choice of company. Keep company with people who are calm, strong, and wise with a deeper nature than you have. Now that's difficult sometimes because especially if we have a family that we must serve and relatives that we have to be around. And in those cases, then we just have to increase our own magnetism so that our calmness magnetism is strong enough that it calms others rather than a weak magnetism that makes us a victim or an effect of other people's cause of restlessness and nervousness. Now, Yogananda said something very interesting in a lecture once. It was about overcoming nervousness. And it was very strange what he said, and he didn't really explain it, but he gave an image. He said, make a triangle. On one side, write the word sweetness. On the other side, write the word calmness. And at the base, write happiness. Interesting. He didn't explain that at all. He just said, create a triangle, sweetness on one side, calmness on the other, happiness at the base. And what he was saying, I think, was that the foundation of happiness comes from sweetness and calmness. And this goes back to what Swami Kriyananda said in the February 29th reading, where he said, to overcome fear of misjudgment, by others, think of and speak to them kindly and sweetly. Your fears will then move from self-concern to an expansive interest in their well-being. And this is the secret of overcoming all fear, all nervousness, all limitation, all attachment, is to think of giving to others. When we think of giving to others, our own concerns dissolve in this expansive, expanded consciousness of being one with the infinite. Self-giving, self-offering to God in service to others is the greatest way to dissolve the ego. And it is this contractive ego that is fearful and is nervous. And so all of our problems are solved by learning how to give. Now, Swami Kriyananda once talked about the best ways to give. He put it in a very brief sentence. He said, "The one who is giving service should render it quietly, efficiently, cheerfully, and willingly." Again, the one who is giving service should render it quietly, efficiently, cheerfully, and willingly. Be observing of others' needs and give with compassion. And you will see that people who follow this way of serving others, giving to others with kindness, with cheerfulness, simply and quietly, that these people are very content, they're joyful, they don't have very many fears or nervousness or even any at all, because they're free in themselves. And so this is the great secret to freedom, is giving to God, giving to others. Swami Kriyananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, uses this word self-offering a lot in terms of seva, in terms of meditation. See your meditation as a self-offering to God. See your seva, your service, as self-offering to God in others. And when your life revolves around this attitude of giving, self-offering with love, with compassion, with kindness, with a certain quietness, is the way Swamiji puts it, then you'll find that there's a great deal of contentment. If you serve for what you're getting out of it, thinking of yourself, whether lecturing or in any other way, that creates nervousness. When you think of others, that creates calmness, that creates freedom. There's a practice that is really good. It's one of our Ananda Education for Life school teachers. He said that he gave his students, young boys and girls, an exercise. He called it secret service. And their homework assignment was to go out and perform an act of service to somebody, a neighbor, someone in their family, but they had to do it secretly. And no one could see them do it. No one could know that they did it. They had to do this act of service without anyone even acknowledging that they did it. And these students did it, and the great lesson that they all learned, as you will learn when you do this, is that there is a great deal of satisfaction and freedom in the simple act of giving to others without any thought at all of what we are getting in return, without getting any public acclaim, without getting a thank you or an acknowledgement. The greatest freedom comes from giving in that way, when we just give freely of ourselves to others without any thought of return. One is already free even in that moment. Swami Kriyananda gave an affirmation to repeat specifically for overcoming nervousness. And we'll repeat this to conclude this evening. So let's get calm, sit upright, and affirm out loud after me, and then more and more quietly. Whatever happens, I am strong enough in myself to overcome every obstacle. Whatever happens, I am strong enough in myself to overcome every obstacle. And now quietly, whatever happens, I am strong enough in myself to overcome every obstacle. And mentally only, whatever happens, I am strong enough in myself to overcome every obstacle. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.